Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Centers for Spiritual Living Metro, based in Arlington, Virginia. And really, we're throughout the East Coast and all around the world. Um, this subject this morning, can I create happiness? When I spoke with Reverend Jackie about tackling this subject, the first thing that came to mind for me was, am I the right person to talk about this? But I had to put my humanness to the side because many of us struggle with this concept about happiness. Not everyone, but some of us. There are so many things around us in our world which are telling us what we need to be happy. This is not a new thing. This has been going on for ages through our advertisements. It's more hyper focused now. Once we had newspapers and mail order magazines telling us what we needed and what was fashionable. And then now we have social media and it's constant and we see it all the time, telling us what we need to be happy, what we need to hear to make us happy. Even the concept of faith and spirituality has been commoditized to a point to tell us what we need to be happy. So this is more than an intellectual exercise for me in talking about this. This is a healing exercise, a way of reminding myself about where happiness actually comes from. Now, in this conversation, I don't intend to be long, but I intend to take what I've learned and to provide it to you in a way that I believe that will inspire you at least for the next 24 hours. But I'm going to give you something that you can carry throughout the week with you. So I'd like to start off with a story that I've heard from an inspirational speaker named Davy Jones. I believe he's based in Scotland. And I believe this story kind of sets the tone for our discussion this morning. Around 20 years ago, I was living in Seattle, going through hard times. I could not find satisfying work, and I found this especially difficult as I had a lot of experience and a master's degree. To my shame, I was driving a school bus to make ends meet and living with friends. I had lost my apartment. I had been through 5 interviews with a company, and one day, between bus runs, they called and said, I did not get the job. I went to the bus barn like a zombie of disappointment. Later that afternoon, while doing my rounds through a quiet suburban neighborhood, I had an inner wave, like a primal scream, arise from deep inside me, and I thought, why has my life become so hard? Give me a sign, I asked. A physical sign, not some inner voice thing. Immediately after this internal scream, I pulled the bus over to drop off a little girl. As she passed, she handed me an earring, saying that I should keep it in case someone claimed it. The earring was stamped with a was stamped metal, painted black, and said, "Be happy." At first I got angry. Whatever, I thought. Then it hit me. I had been putting all of my energies into what was wrong with my life rather than what was right. I decided then and there to make a list of 50 things I was grateful for. At first, it was hard. Then it got easier. One day I decided to up that list to 75 things. That night, there was a phone call for me at my friend's house from a lady who was a manager at a large hospital. About a year earlier, I had submitted a syllabus to a community college to teach a course on stress management. She asked me if I would do a 1 day seminar for 200 hospital workers. And of course, I said yes. I got the job. My day with the hospital workers went very well. I got a standing ovation and many more days of work. To this day, I know it was because I changed my attitude to gratitude. Incidentally, the day after I found the earring, the little girl asked me if anyone claimed it. I told her no, and she said, I guess it was meant for you. I then spent the next year conducting training workshops all around the Seattle area, and then decided to risk everything and go back to Scotland where I had lived previously. I closed my one-man business, bought a plane ticket, and got a 6-month visa from immigration. 1 month later, I met my wonderful English wife and best friend of 15 years now. We live in a small, beautiful cottage 2 miles from a paved road in the Highlands of Scotland. The only attitude is gratitude has been my motto for years now. It has changed my life. Now, when I heard this story, it was very uplifting for me. And I began thinking through the story as I prepared for this talk. And it hit me that prior to beginning this process, as I do anything, I started with prayer. I meditated. I centered myself. And then I thought about the story again, and I asked myself, had someone told me this story, or had I read it, or gotten it from some other place, and I wasn't preparing for this talk, how would I have received it? So, how do you feel about the story that you just heard? You see, because when I'm content, I can receive something like this. Remember in the story when he received the little thing there that said be happy? His reaction wasn't, "Oh, that's fantastic. I want to be happy." No, he was pissed because things were not going well for him at that time. So even though he heard a good word, how did he receive it? He didn't receive it immediately. So when we're hurt, when we're disappointed, when we're angry, this may affect how we receive that information. Now, what about you when you heard this? Was there gratitude for hearing it? Or were you cynical when you heard this? Only you can answer that question. You're carrying on your own conversation right now with yourself. Or did you just justify why being happy isn't so simple? You see, this story was about happiness, but more importantly, the reason why I shared this story, it's because it's about the inner dialogue that you are carrying on right this moment about that story. You see, when it comes to happiness, we certainly should not assume that it's something that we wait for. And so this morning, we'll spend just a few minutes exploring how it can become something that we generate. Neville Goddard has this little book called Mental Diets. And in this book, it really teaches us how to watch our inner speech, the thoughts we repeatedly dwell upon. These things not only shape our mood, but our entire life experience. So today we'll talk about how inner speech creates and it can destroy, specifically when it comes to happiness. We'll talk a little bit about how to deliberately choose our inner conversations and how happiness can become a spiritual discipline and not just a lucky accident. You see, there's a huge difference that we made, and I'm sure this is something that we all have encountered in life, particularly since many of us here are seekers. We understand that there's a difference between experiencing a happy event in our lives versus being happy. Many of us, we get happy because we received a new job or a new client, because we are in a new relationship, or because we're ending an unhappy relationship, or because we're leaving a job, or leaving a client that was particularly troublesome. These are all external things, but being happy itself, of course, is a practice. One of the key ideas that Neville Goddard shares with us is that the world is a mirror, forever reflecting what we do within ourselves. So if we believe that happiness comes from our outer events, like money, praise, or people, we're actually placing our well-being in very, very fragile hands. Happiness isn't circumstantial. This is ultimately the result of the inner conversations that we keep having when no one else is listening. So ask yourself right now, what is my dominant mental diet? What do you constantly think about? In addition to what you constantly think about, what is the emotion that's attached to it? Are you constantly worried, whether it's about your child, about your parent, about your finances, about the wonderful, wonderful challenges God is presenting us with in our country today? Is it doubt? Are you constantly doubting yourself? Constantly doubting the outcome of circumstances in your life? Constantly doubting God? Blame. Is the problem always outside of you? Or are your dominant thoughts on peace, gratitude, and love? When it comes to those quote unquote negative emotions, quote unquote, I mentioned that there is a emotion attached to it. And when we continually experience these emotions, we become used to them. They become comforting. When we're continually angry, we become comfortable in that anger. When we're continually worrying and there's nothing to worry about, we become bewildered. I'm missing something. Something's missing because we're used to this quote unquote negative emotion. We've become addicted to it of sorts. So today, let's talk about how we can unlearn this behavior. Let's talk about how happiness can truly begin when we take ownership of what we feed our minds. You see, it's quite necessary that, and this is a quote that I took from a book called Creative Mind Trilogy. You know, Amazon will sometimes take a group of books and just mash them together and give it a new name, right? So it's probably not even a real Ernest Holmes book, but it's three books. It's The Creative Mind and Success, and The Science of Mind. And this was on page 57 of the Kindle book. And the quote says, "It is quite necessary then that the successful business person should keep their mind on thoughts of happiness, which produce cheerfulness instead of depression. They should radiate joy and should be filled with hope, faith, and expectancy." And it doesn't have to be a business person, of course. We can associate that to a person doing anything in particular. But let's talk about that inner conversation and how we can change that conversation as well as the emotions attached to it. But first, diving into that a little bit more, diving into that mental practice, which invites us to listen to the thoughts that we have as if those thoughts were a radio station. So when you're listening to the radio and there's something on there you don't like what you're hearing, what do? You change the dial. I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to something else. You know, it's funny when I was putting this together, I got to thinking about songs that I like. I don't know about you, but I'm sometimes I'm working on something and my mind wanders off in a completely different direction. I'm sure no one else does that. And so I started thinking about songs throughout my life, the ones that had like a really big impact, not only a big impact, but those that really had the ability, if I allow myself to open up, to really affect my emotions and my mood. And we all may have had songs like that. We all probably listened to John Lennon's Imagine. Song was written nearly 60 years ago and still is poignant till this day. Beautiful song. And it's really uplifting song when you hear it. I sometimes listen to it on repeat, but there's some others. And I watched how it can control my mood, or I thought about that and how it could affect me. So in the early 80s, there is a R&B artist by the name of Billy Ocean. And he topped the charts. This early 80s. And he had a song called There'll Be Sad Songs. It's a very sad song, but it's a love song. There'll be sad songs that make you cry. Love songs often do. I'm a terrible singer, but I remember the song. And I know that if I listen to it several times, that I might be in a loving mood, but not a super happy mood because that song, it impacted me in that way. When I was in high school, around 16 or so, there was an artist, a grunge rock artist, and I didn't listen to grunge music really. He had a song called Smells Like Teen Spirit. His name was Kurt Cobain. And this song is a really upbeat song, really great song. And before I got out there on the basketball court to play JV basketball terribly, I would listen to that song to get myself hyped up. And at the end of high school, there was this song called End of the Road by Boys to Men. Beautiful song. And it's a happy and sad song at the exact same time, talking about the end of one journey and the beginning of another. Now, you may have very different songs, or movies, or television shows, or even very specific scenes that have the ability to tug at your heartstrings, may even change your emotions at that particular moment in time. Things that may get you angry, things that will make you sad, open up your heart and making you more loving because we allow these things to. We allow those things to affect us in that way. So when we look at that, it helps us to really understand that everything depends upon our attitude toward ourselves. So what song are you playing in your head when you wake up in the morning? I'm using that, of course, in a rhetorical way, the song being what's on your mind? What story are you telling yourself when you fall asleep at night? Because that song, that story is also attached to an emotion. And when we assume the feeling of being happy, even before your outer world agrees with it, the law begins to arrange things to match that vibration. When we assume the feeling of being angry, when we go out into the world that day, the world will begin to deliver to us that state of consciousness, that emotion, that story we have told ourselves. If the same thing when we walk out the door when we're sad or when we're in a loving mood, we begin to face exactly what we are putting out into the world around us. In the Bible, Matthew 9:16 to 17, it talks about this. It says, no one puts a piece of new cloth on an old garment, for the patch pulls away from the garment, and a worse tear results. Nor is new wine put into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wineskins burst, and the wine spills, and the wineskins are ruined. The new wine is put into fresh wineskins, so both are preserved. Now, what the heck does that mean? You see, this wine represents our spiritualized thought. We want we want happiness, we want health, we want these good things of life, And we tell ourselves through affirmations that we want them, but we may not necessarily experiencing them because we haven't prepared ourselves for them. You see, what this means is that we must become the thing we desire most before we can experience it. And when we try to chase happiness from external sources, we find that we're putting new wine in an old wineskin. This is why when we try to use external things to fill the voids in our life, the shopping, over shopping, the overeating, the overindulgence in alcohol or sex, whatever it may be, that feeling is fleeting. And then we return to that previous state of unhappiness. Thich Nhat Hanh says happiness is only possible with true love. And that true love begins, of course, with our own thoughts. Do we truly love ourselves? And if so, why are we so hard on ourselves? You see, happiness, like love, it's a practice, it's a choice, it's a habit. It is a mental muscle that we are exercising. I would like to challenge you this week. I like to use the word challenge. For some folks, that means, oh, yeah, you're going to challenge me, I'm going to do it. And if challenge doesn't resonate with you, I would like to encourage you to practice a mental diet for the next 7 days. I'm going to share something personal for a second. I am going to go on a fast of sorts for the next 20 days. And there are things that I'm going to give up for that period of time. This is a health focused thing that I'm doing. I'm going on a hike, and that hike is going to be in Machu Picchu. And I'm preparing myself physically because I'm going up that higher altitude and I'm hiking it, of course. But also, I just want to clear my body out. But the true benefit will really come to me if I also do the same with my mind. Because if I only work on this temple right here and not this one or the spirit that I'm a part of, then I'm only cleaning a third of who I am because we are all mind, body, and spirit. So on the mental side, I'm going to give myself a mental diet. And I'd like to share with you this practice as well. So for the next 7 days, I'm not even asking for the whole month or 20 days, just for the next 7. I want you to choose to reject any unloving or unhappy inner dialogue. I want you to replace it immediately with a loving, joyful one, even if you don't feel it yet. Especially if you don't feel it yet. So I want you to say, I am grateful when you find out that things are not quite working your way that day. I want you to consciously think of something that is working for you. When things are maybe in turmoil in your life, I want you to say, I am peaceful because you're in turmoil most likely in one area of your life or two areas of your life, but there is something that's stable. And I want you to think, I expect wonderful things today. Now, for some of us, it may also involve controlling what we're allowing in. We were talking earlier about the songs. I was talking about the songs that really affect me, and you were thinking about the ones that may affect you. So think about the things that will swing your moods because you're open to them. And if they don't swing your mood in the way that you would like, that supports your mental diet, maybe you don't want to listen to those songs. Maybe you don't want to watch those movies. Or maybe that news program is something you might want to put to the side and Find something that just gives you the bullet points on what's happening in the world and allows you to decide and skips out the editorial. These are some ideas that I'm sharing with you. Because, of course, the cornerstone on which all things are based is a person's concept of themselves. So, for this mental diet to be effective, we want to control anything that's going to affect ourselves. Now, on the physical aspect of this diet, my attempt, and the reason why I'm saying this out loud and telling everybody about it, is because now I have to hold myself accountable when I say it. See, if I'm out there and I'm going through this fast and it's just to myself, if I cheat, then I know about it. But in my mind, if I tell you all, then I feel like everyone knows about it. I know that's not true, but that's my own little thing that I do to keep myself on track. So I know that during this period that I probably should not go into Krispy Kreme. I know during this period I should not get my coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I know that there are certain restaurants. I love Jamaican food. So I know not to even go down the street in Richmond that has my favorite Jamaican spot. I'm going to avoid that altogether. I love that restaurant. Wonderful folks. Great food. But I'm not going down that street for the next 20 days. So I'm going to avoid anything that's going to interrupt my physical diet. And so so I'm also looking to do the exact same thing with my mental and spiritual diet as well. Thich Nhat Hanh, and this is a paraphrasing that I'm giving you here from the Teachings of Love, where it says, make each moment an occasion to live deeply, happily, in peace. The world needs your happiness. So this concept of this mental diet, this concept of being happy so that you experience happiness in your world. This is not about self delusion. This is about soul alignment. And as a closing thought, I'd like to share a concept that I heard from Neville Goddard regarding our thoughts. He says, you must stop spending your thoughts and begin to invest them. I think about that quite frequently. Many of us have cars. And our car, and you probably had many cars in your life, we know that they're not going to be around forever. At some point, you'll let that car go because it has a finite life. You'll need to replace the tires on that car. You'll need to change the oil every 3 months or 6 months or whatever the case may be. You'll need to put gas in it every week or every 2 weeks or, how often you drive. These are temporary goods. So when we spend money, we're spending them, the word spend, to acquire some temporary good. But when we invest in something, we put our money into our 401k at work, or we put our money into some stocks or whatever the case may be, we're expecting a return. So for these next 7 days, I would like for you to look at your thoughts during this mental diet in the same way. Am I spending my thoughts or am I investing them? Because when we invest them, we're expecting a return. This investment in happiness is not just for yourself. As Centers for Spiritual Living, one of our goals is to make a world that works for everyone. So, in this process, we are doing this also for all those around us because when we're happy, we're spreading that happiness to everyone around us. We're nicer to those around us. We're more considerate. We're more caring. So, it is something that we're contributing to the world. And I want you to look at this in that your joy is your ministry. Look at this as your inner peace being your sacred activism. So I'd like to close this morning with a prayer. There is one mind, one power, one presence, one joy-filled mind that creates all life. That power is within me, as me, and through me now. I speak a word for happiness, not as something to be found, but as something to be felt now. I release any pattern of lack, sorrow, or limitation. I claim a new inner speech, words of joy, images of love, thoughts of gratitude. I am the embodiment of divine delight. I radiate happiness to my world, and I give thanks for the joy I have known and the joy that is still unfolding. And so it is. And so ends the lesson.